Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal. We're getting ready for the show here. So we're going to dip into the audio here soon, and we're going to be talking with Paul at Villarreal today. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. I mean, we're going to be talking politics, we're going to be talking technology, state of the campaign. There's just a lot of stuff to talk about here. No question about it. This is going to be really good, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited just looking at everything right here. We're getting ready for it. Let's just see where we're at here. We'll take the audio for a second.
And accessories.
Okay, so we got a little bit of time there. If you have any questions, any comments, put it in the chat. Now, next week, we have a huge show. We're going to be joined, and I'll say it on the air here as well. We're going to be joined by John Yoo from UC Berkeley, professor of constitutional law there. He is phenomenal. We're going to talk about Supreme Court. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Really, he's got a great new book, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to be joined by the Secretary of Commerce from Florida, Laura DiBella. That's going to be fantastic. So we're going to talk a lot of stuff next week, but this week we're going to really get into it as well.
So for late afternoon this evening, we'll put...
Yeah, got the weather there, so we should be pretty close here. Just monitoring everything. Okay, and this is going to be very exciting here. Let's just check it again here. We're probably about a minute out of the show here on 1040, so just get ready for that.
However, in a high of 90, while then backing off Wednesday to only a 15% daytime storm and a high up to 93. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, Newstalk 10.
Okay, get ready. Here we go.
Of the upcoming broadcast is brought to you in part by the law firm of Catania and Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay.
Get ready. We're getting ready to go here. So we'll catch the audio here in a second.
Which is why more than 30% of...
Okay, so probably about 30 seconds out here. Just check for my producer here. Got it. Okay. Yep.
Boost they need to make it through. Brought to you by the...
Okay, so get ready. We're going to go live here. The start of the show is always like this because we have to pick up the audio.
Reflect the views and opinions of Genesis Communications, its management, staff, or advertisers. Welcome to the John Villarreal Show. Now, here's John.
Hey, what's going on? Newstalk 1040 AM in the greater Tampa Bay area. And everybody there live we're recorded later on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. A lot going on this week. So much going on in the world. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to take your comments as well. Can't wait to get into it. And we're also going to be joined by Paul at Villarreal. We may have a guest at the 5 o'clock hour as well. And it's special programming note, very important. Well, two things right here. First of all, the show is sponsored by Audi Lakeland, and Audi Lakeland is just phenomenal. I'm broadcasting there live right now. And Audi Lakeland this month from Danny Giovino, I just got it, $500 off any used car, $2,000 off any new car if you mention the John D. Villarreal radio show at the start of your deal. Don't miss it. Come on down, get a great deal here at Audi Lakeland. Now, I want to also mention next week, super important. Next week, we have two very special guests. We're going to be joined by John Yoo of UC Berkeley School of Law. Just phenomenal. This is a constitutional law scholar. I believe a former Supreme Court clerk as well, justice clerk as well. And the author of a great new book. I mean, this guy has a resume that is so voluminous. It's not even funny. He's also worked for the Department of Justice, I believe. I don't want to misspeak. You can go Google it out there, and we're going to get all the resume together and really deliver that next week. We're going to get into the Supreme Court decisions. We're going to get into all kinds of different things. Of course, his great new book. I have not had a chance to read it yet, but I know the level of scholarship. And in fact, I have to, in full disclosure, say that he is my former professor of constitutional law at UC Berkeley School of Law, and also was my advisor. I was the vice president of the Federalist Society there at UC Berkeley, so that we're really pleased. He's been on Fox News a lot recently, obviously with the news out there, and we're very pleased to be joined by him. And we will also be joined by Laura DiBella, the Florida Secretary of Commerce, to talk about all things commerce and business in the great state of Florida and what's going on and successes, what's going on right here in Florida. Why are so many people voting with their feet and coming to Florida and being here in Florida, the great state of Florida? So we're going to get into that. But right now, we're going to be joined by Paul at Villarreal. calling in by phone. And this dude, I'm telling you, I mean, yes, he's my brother, no question about it, but you're talking about someone who is a political expert. You're talking about someone who has a degree from Cornell and Ivy League school. You're also talking about someone that kind of on, the DL, kind of on the QT, is really out there and is in connection with, I can't get into it because he's kind of doing it on a sort of anonymous type of thing, but really, I don't want to say too much, but I'm just telling you, this dude is connected, and I don't want to give it too much characterization, but people are seeing what he's putting out there. They're sort of reposting some things out there, and there's a lot of activity on that space. Paul, are you on the line?
I am, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I want to get into there's so much to talk about here, and we're really chopping it up. And when you're doing a show, you're doing it live as we are right now from Audi Lakeland. And obviously I'm in the business right here. I can definitely sell you a car here at Audi Lakeland if you come on down here and all that. I'm not gonna make any claims or anything like that, and everything you do is at your own risk, do your diligence, etc. But the point of it is when you're in the business and you're working and you're a professional, whatever your job is, there's so many people, they're busy right now. And so we didn't have the absolute full time to prepare this show, but this show really prepares itself, Paul, because there is so much going on in the world right now. I mean, it's almost like, which direction do we want to go in? Do we want to talk about, there's so many different things. I don't even want to open up a subject because, are we going to talk about the cluster bomb thing? Are we going to talk about Biden? Are we talk about, but I really think that where it's at, I think we have to talk about two main things. And I know we come back to it, but it really is what it is, right? I think we have to talk about the economy, because there's a lot of reports out there, you've got a lot of data out there, and I don't want to turn this necessarily, although I don't mind it whatsoever. And we are going to talk a lot about technology and business and entrepreneurship and that in automotive. That is a huge part of this show. We know that. But I don't want to totally turn it into like, one of the business news channels full blast, because we are on Newstalk 1040 AM and we have to get into that. But I do think that a lot of people, there is an unease out there, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. I want to set up some of the other stuff first with election 2024, because I think that really a lot of people want to talk about that, right? But I do think that people are really wondering, like, what's the Fed going to do? Like, okay, we've seen some job report numbers and they look okay, but are they, are they high paying jobs? Are they more entry level jobs? Are people working two jobs? Inflation still, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. And I think that we have to kind of make some sense of that. And we will try to do that in taking your calls and comments. But I want to get into this election 2024 and some of the participants in that, right? Because there's so much that's been happening. And me, I can go and obviously I'm going to set it up, but I really think that what's your feeling of it? My feeling is the more things change, the more things stay the same. And I think it's still Biden and Trump. I think we're right there. You had Trump at UFC with Dana White, Mark Wahlberg, a lot of people in there, and he got a really big applause and welcome there in that arena at UFC 290. And then you have people that are now a little bit more openly, even on Fox News, that are talking about Governor DeSantis maybe in that campaign struggling a bit. And at the same time, I've heard more discussion about, hey, maybe on the Democrat side, maybe it's Newsom. Now, they don't talk about Robert Kennedy Jr., but I'm hearing maybe it's Governor Newsom. Maybe it's former First Lady Michelle Obama. Maybe it's Kamala Harris. I mean, you're deep into this, and I know you know what's going on out there, and you do some research. It's interesting to talk to you because, we hear different things out there. What are you hearing out there? What's your sense of it?
My sense of it is that this last 7 days, was extremely good for former President Trump. As you said, the UFC 290 in Las Vegas, he had just massive response, positive response, applause, shaking hands with Joe Rogan, who was happy. Of course, Joe Rogan with the massive podcast. Mel Gibson was there. Mark Wahlberg was there. I mean, one of the fighters jumped over the cage to say hi to him, and this guy's the fighter's not even from the United States. He had two speeches this week, one in Las Vegas, one in Iowa. Both were massive successes. I just think he's grooving right now, and that's where he's at. As contrasting that DeSantis seems to be struggling, as you said, and one of his advisors, Steve Cortez, came out this week and said essentially in an interview, yeah, we're not doing that well. We're way behind. And for somebody to openly say that is like kind of shocking, but it's also true. One of the pollsters that I follow, a man named Rich Barris, who's an excellent, one of the best and most accurate pollsters in the country, said he is currently polling Iowa. The poll is not finished yet, but it's close. And he said, look, I think DeSantis is going to be under 20%, and I think Trump is going to be over 50%. So we're talking about a 30-plus point lead. And just so your audience understands, DeSantis' strategy is completely geared towards winning Iowa. The strategy is put a bunch of money and a bunch of effort into Iowa and then win that and take momentum from that because Iowa's the first primary or caucus of the cycle. Take that momentum and carry it on into further contest. Well, right now you lose it by 30 points. And you've dropped a lot of money and a lot of time, and so he's struggling.
Look, it's brutal. There's no doubt about it. I just got confirmation. We're going to be joined by James Horace at the 5 o'clock hour, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things, and it's going to be great. It's going to be fun, and he's a former classmate of mine at Johns Hopkins. This guy is really cool, and honestly, like, it's beyond that. I mean, James is a veteran. He has a lot of experience. There's a lot of things we can talk about. I think he served in Afghanistan. There's just so much we can talk about. I want to let him discuss what he wants to discuss, but this is a very interesting person. You're not going to want to miss this guy, and he's doing a lot professionally right now as well. So we'll get into that. But here's the thing, Paul. I agree with you. I think that look, this is tough, right? I mean, I like Governor DeSantis, but we talked about before. I've said it for so long. I've warned on it for so long. I mean, and I'm not trying. Listen, I'm nobody, right? I'm nobody. Like I like to say, I'm getting calls. I'm just shut off my phone. That's my mistake because I'm trying to answer the future guest. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point of it is this. I'm nobody. I just know a lot of things. I know a lot of people. I know politics. I've run campaigns before. I've done I've consulted for U.S. Senate campaigns, etc. And I'm not saying that I'm, Karl Rove or Dick Moore or something like that. But I got to tell you, player, in a lot of ways, I think that I'm better. I mean, you look at, I'm losing. Oh man, Parscale, right? Brad Parscale. How much experience did he have before he ran Trump's campaign? And look what he did. The game has changed. It's a different situation out there now, and you have to understand that. And I think that a lot of people are saying that, like, in fact, no less than Molly Hemingway, right, of the Federalist said that we thought that DeSantis was sort of a new version of Trump without some of the negatives, but in fact, I forget exactly her words on Fox News, but it's in an old time or old style. I don't want to misspeak there, but something like basically a typical a classic Republican campaign. That's not going to work right now. And if the lesson of 2020 taught us anything, it's that those campaigns no longer work. That you have to have a different ground game and you have to have different messaging. And if you see no less, I mean, listen, let me put it to you this way. Bobby Kennedy Jr. is polling almost as strong, if not as strong, as Governor DeSantis on the Democratic side. And you look at the kind of push and donations and massive Wall Street money and Fox News appearances that you see with Governor DeSantis, and you don't have hardly any of that on with Bobby Kennedy Jr., and you see the energy that you have right there, Paul. I mean, don't you agree about that?
I totally agree. And just as you said, I mean, the kind of new campaign, as we talked about last week or the week before that, Bobby Kennedy's doing push-up videos on Twitter. So he's doing it in a completely different way than just appearing on traditional news, because he's getting mostly shut out on traditional news. Instead, he's doing podcasts. He's doing Twitter videos. He's doing this stuff, and people like what he's doing. What you mentioned about Molly Hemingway saying about Governor DeSantis, and as you said, we like Governor DeSantis.
Absolutely.
We're just kind of observing what's happening. But somebody on NBC, I guess yesterday on Meet the Press, one Sunday shows, said, look, Governor DeSantis is starting to kind of have that vibe of like Jeb Bush or Scott Walker, which are great governors who just come off as like not really they don't make you feel anything, kind of bland or whatever. And then the person said, whatever you think about President Trump, he makes you feel something. He connects. And that's what people want, and particularly in the social media era.
They absolutely do. There's no doubt about it. Now, we got a little bit of an echo here, and I don't know if that's on your end, Paul, but make sure that you're not on speakerphone, or that may be possibly in the studio, whatever. It's no big deal. We'll get it fixed. But I want to make sure that everybody hears this right now. Listen, the Republican Party, and maybe we need to use a lot of this show for that, really needs to do some deep soul searching right now. Some deep soul searching. Because here's the deal. In any analysis that I do at this point, I mean, the lead, well, I think what Paul's saying, what I'm saying, what we've been saying, and here's the thing, you can say whatever. I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I just can't help it. You can say that who's this guy and whatever. I've been right. If you look at my videos, you look at my shows, you go back a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, I've been right all the time, the whole time on this. I'm not about everything. No one's 100% right, but I mean, the basic main themes. I mean, Paul, am I not telling the truth now? I mean, have I not called this for quite some time right now?
Yeah, you have. And just to let you know, I'm not on the speakerphone or anything like that, so it could be a bad connection. No. You have been right. And we've both been in this game a long time. So not only are you correct, you're experienced in this. You've seen the movie before. So you definitely have that in your background.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, but it is about the point I'm trying to make is this. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm trying to say it's time to get realistic. It's time to get realistic, Republicans. And it's time to get realistic, Democrats, quite frankly. You know what I mean? You have to be realistic about what it is and where it's going right now, because here's the deal. It's going to be Trump, barring something like, and I love the way now all of a sudden we're hearing from these pundits that, the indictments, he got the indictment bump. That's helping Trump. I thought that was going to ruin him. I thought that was going to make him unelectable. What happened there? You know what I mean? And it's just not showing up. It's not showing up in the polls. The bottom line is that, my concern is this. Governor DeSantis has been a great governor for Florida, no matter what. I mean, forget about everything else. Forget about, what people think about his retail politics, or if you're for Trump, or if you're for DeSantis, if you're never Trump, whatever. I mean, Governor DeSantis has been a great governor for Florida. But the problem of it is that, and you said it to me last night, Paul, and I've said it in different ways, but it was a good point. What exactly when you see Trump, you're seeing, again, forget about your politics. You have to be able to objectively analyze these things. You really do. You really have to lock in and just try to be as unbiased as you can. Trump is a straight up global celebrity. He is a television star. That is just a fact. That is a fact by ratings. That's a fact by The Apprentice show. That's a fact by Name ID. That's just a fact, dude. I mean, he gets paid, or his company's got paid a bunch of money over many years just for the name Trump. Boom, stick that name Trump on a tower. Stick that name Trump on a business. Stick the name Trump on a whatever that it is. That name has massive brand ID. That's not the same thing with Governor DeSantis. And that's no slam on DeSantis or whatever like that. But I mean, I wouldn't get in the ring with George St. Pierre or Israel, Ayadana and think I'm going to win. I hope I pronounced that correctly here. I don't have it in front, but I believe that. It's just not going to work, dude. I may have been something back in the day, and I may think I'm still okay, and whatever it is, and it's 4-time national champion. That's not going to work. I would get crushed quickly. Okay, I mean, it wouldn't be close. It wouldn't be close. And so I just don't know, did Governor DeSantis think he could win? Did consultants sell him money could win? I mean, it's just, you have to, almost do a post-mortem at this point and just say to yourself, who convinced him that he could win? Now, some people run, there's different reasons to run, right? Some people run because they're trying to increase, I'm not alleging anything, I'm just saying hypothetically in election X way down the road, Some people run because maybe they want to, increase their speaking fees and book deals. Some people run because they want practice and set it up for the next time. Some people run because they want to be VP. Some people run because they want to be president. Some people run because they want to be in the cabinet or whatever. I'm not alleging anything or assigning any kind of factual basis on any of that type of stuff. But if you really believed, and I might be saying, maybe you could say it a little bit better, Paul, but I'm trying to be a little bit careful how I say this because I don't want to I don't want to sit here and just, punk out Governor DeSantis. He's been a great governor. My concern is I just don't understand the theory of how you really thought you were going to take out Trump, who was the last sitting president for the Republicans, who has massive name ID. So you're not going to move his numbers that much. I mean, I just don't understand how you think you were going to win. And the problem for all of them is that you look at Chris Christie and these other people, it's like, dude, how do you, again, like what's the role here? Are you part of the Never Trump team? Okay, let me put it this way. If you're on the Republican side, how are you helping the party by running right now? And if you are wanting to win, you have to take on Trump. And if you take on Trump, what's going to happen when he engages with you? Or if he ignores you? Honestly, if he ignores you, it could even be better. I don't see anything moving those numbers. I mean, there's just no oxygen in the room. Who's going to watch a debate without Trump? Some. And then if you take on Trump, I mean, does that further and if you don't win the presidency, does that further your goals to get back in the cabinet? And so to what extent are they going to, go after each other? It's very tricky. And that feeds into, let me ask you that question, Paul. That's probably the best question. Next question, maybe. Will Governor DeSantis be at that first debate if Trump's not there?
I just saw something yesterday that I believe was from his campaign saying that, yes, he will be at the debate, whereas the Political Action Committee, the PAC supporting him, the main one, Never Back Down, was intimating that he shouldn't go to the first debate if Trump isn't there. Now it appears that stance has been changed or whatever. And look, we talked about this off air. In my opinion, you have to go to that debate.
He has to be at the debate. He has to be at the debate.
You're trying to win over Trump voters. If you don't show up, you can't win over anybody, whether he's there or not.
Whoever made that decision, sorry, real quick, Paul, I apologize. Whoever made a decision, whether it's Governor DeSantis, the team, whomever made that decision, that is the right decision, in my opinion. I'm not giving any advice whatsoever. I'm giving my own opinion here. But like you said, you have to be at the debate. If Governor DeSantis, the worst thing possible for Governor DeSantis is to see someone like Vivek Ramaswamy or someone else like that continue to increase and do better in the polls as he just sits flat and goes down. He cannot have that. He has to at least at minimum stabilize himself and consolidate himself as the leader, as number 2 in the race. If he cannot keep some kind of altitude to his polls, it's done. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's already done, in my opinion. Given what we know now, of course, that nothing. We have had no elect. We're still 6-7 months out, whatever that it is. But I think he's in a tough position. And what you don't want to see is Governor DeSantis hurt himself for 2028. But listen, I think people are very forgiving, and I think in some ways, memories are short. In some ways, time is a lifetime in politics. So, but for Governor DeSantis, I think there has to be a reality check for the Republican side, and we're going to talk about the Democrats in the next segment. I think there has to be a reality check in that. Look, if we assume it's going to be Trump, or there's a very high likelihood it's going to be Trump, how do we get together? We cannot win unless everybody is behind whomever that nominee is. We cannot win. If we didn't learn anything, 2020 has shown us that. 2022 has shown us that as well, really, honestly. I mean, it kind of continued, right? I mean, they talk, so we have to really, really consolidate. We cannot have the Never Trump movement or the Never DeSantis movement or whomever that it might be. People have to come together if they expect to win. Or else you can't. I don't want to hear the fundraising from Jeb Bush or Karl Rove or whomever, or people on Fox News or whomever it is. This is such an important election, or Sean Hannity or any of these people about how important this election is if we're not willing to rally around whomever that nominee is. So much more to talk about. We're going to keep talking about this and diving into it and talk about the Democrats on the next break. You're listening to the John D. Villarreal Show here on News Talk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay Area. Be right back at you. Okay, hey, so for you at home right now, we are going to take a little bit of a break here. So I'm going to mute myself here for about, maybe 5 minutes. We'll see you back here when the show continues. We'll be going back on the air here pretty soon here. Let me just check the audio.
Veterans of America.
Okay, we're getting pretty close here. Okay, what's going on? Newstalk 1040 AM audience here in the greater Tampa Bay area. John Villarreal here. We're talking about all kinds of stuff with Paul at Villarreal. This is the John D. Villarreal show, and there's just so much that we're really discussing. And as I peruse some of the news out there during the break, I got to tell you, I still don't get it. I still don't understand what the thesis is to beat Donald Trump. I don't see that. We do have a lot of economic news we're going to get to, so we're going to try to just kind of wind through a bunch of topics very, very quickly. And so, look, my point is this. At some point, you have to really look at what the reality of the situation is. I think that some of the supporters of Governor DeSantis are getting kind of worried. I think no less than Trey Gowdy, I saw on Fox News yesterday, they were talking about, the campaign. And I think in some ways the campaign has underperformed. Now, Governor DeSantis has been a great governor, but it's really, what's the next move? How does Governor DeSantis change the game? Because they've had, his wife out there, Casey DeSantis out there, and I think they have Moms for DeSantis or something like that. Paul can talk a little bit about that. I don't see that. It almost harkens back to sort of the, Tea Party type of stuff. And I see a lot of things about the cultural and social issues, but I don't hear a lot of economic talk from Governor DeSantis and Paul. I mean, I think that bottom line is people are really, really thinking and talking about economics right now and jobs, and a lot of people are very concerned. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think people are, as usual, most concerned about economic issues. And I can tell you this from watching both of Trump's speeches this week. In Iowa, he was hitting DeSantis on the ethanol issue, which is huge in Iowa, of course. And in Nevada, he was hitting DeSantis on DeSantis' supposedly support for putting nuclear waste in Yucca Mountain, which is a very contentious issue out there. So Trump's not focusing on culture war stuff. He's focusing more on issues in people's life every single day in the region he's speaking at. That's going to help him, and I would think that would hurt DeSantis. As far as what DeSantis can do, you did mention Casey DeSantis doing the term is Mamas for DeSantis. She did something similar during the 2022 reelection campaign for Governor DeSantis, and I think it was pretty effective. She is doing this, and the focus again seems to be in Iowa because the main focus for them right now is Iowa. That's their strategy, is put everything on Iowa. So that's what they're trying to do. Is it going to work? Well, based on that poll I told you about earlier, it isn't working. But I think if you are that campaign, what else are you going to do? I mean, what else can you do? One thing that I did see is that somebody, I would imagine, somebody that doesn't want Trump to do well has sent out flyers or mailers in Iowa basically promoting Trump as someone who has helped out LGBT, which he has been supportive of LGBT in certain regards, but the intent of these flyers is to make him look bad, I guess, to conservative voters. Now, I don't think this is anybody associated with the DeSantis campaign, but, outside forces are trying to hurt Trump ostensibly to help DeSantis there, too. So I would imagine that's going to continue. In fact, I know separate PACs are being set up to start spending more money in these early states to hurt Trump.
Here's the thing, and I really even didn't want to talk about this, but we'll talk about it since you brought it up. And I owe it to the audience to try to give you the best analysis that I can. And I just want to say something right now. This is analysis. This is political analysis. And I think I speak for you, Paul. I mean, we're for peace, love, freedom, opportunity, liberty, equality for everybody out there. And with that disclaimer, I'll say this. I think the DeSantis campaign is just kind of an odd campaign, and I have heard from my producer. There are some big storms here in Florida. You've probably heard that we've got all kinds of weather things going on here, so there are some technical things out there, and I definitely appreciate our team, the great team at Newstalk 1040 AM in Tampa and Greater Tampa area, doing a great job and helping us bring this awesome show to you, and we really appreciate it. And we definitely appreciate the people here at Audi Lakeland. The show is sponsored by Audi Lakeland, and great Audi Lakeland, and we have got great vehicles at Audi Lakeland. Not just Audis, all kinds of different vehicles here, Mercedes and BMW and everything, but definitely we are a Audi store. And right now for this month, Danny G has put out something $500 off any used car, $2,000 off any new car if you mention the John D. Villarreal show at the start of your deal. Okay, so that's very important right there, and take advantage of that opportunity right here. I'd love to see you here at Audi Lakeland, right off of I-4. Now, I want to do some analysis because the DeSantis campaign is a little bit confusing. And if you believe, I'll start with this. I think I'm trying to say three things at once. I think he's going too hard on the cultural issues. I really do. And I don't even like I think it's just too out there, and I don't get it. And maybe some would say, well, look at the donors and Wall Street, and he's not really touching the economic issues. So if you're going to attack Trump, are you trying to get to the right of Trump on certain, it just doesn't, I don't get it. Now, I do think there is, if you're in that Governor Youngkin lane of, hey, we want to support parents, and hey, we want schools to be focused on education and making sure that the kids have basic literacy and reading and writing and math skills and all this type of stuff and whatever like that. I think that's one thing, right? I think that, being pro-parent is very politically smart. But I think when you start, picking fights, and some people said this on the Sunday shows that, Governor DeSantis was really good at picking fights, but I think it's just gone way overboard. And it's almost become a caricature. Now, I'm not sitting here to get into any specific policy, and I just really don't even want to, go down those roads, quite frankly, honestly. But I do think that when Trump is for lack of a better word, more libertarian and to the right, more MAGA on economics, and to the left on social issues, I think that is much sounder footing politically than what Governor DeSantis is doing. And once again, I don't understand the Governor DeSantis campaign other than it feels like the, Jeb Bush, Karl Rove, Fox News campaign. And that is a campaign that may have worked 20, 30 years ago. That's not working today. Paul, do you agree with what I just said there with the analysis?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it has been said multiple times by various sources that, yes, the strategy is to try to run to the right of Trump in the primary. In fact, somebody at a donor conference or session for DeSantis, when he launched, somebody recorded audio of the session, and they were talking, I think, about the Dobbs decision, and it was like, yeah, we're going to run to the right, and then in the general, we're going to run to the middle. So they're admitting that. I mean, that seems to be part of the strategy. As far as the last thing that you said, I think that you're right. It's just not, Trump is more libertarian on social issues and stuff. Now, I do think the main focus is on trade. The main focus is on economics. The main focus is on America first, immigration. But that's what people care about. Like as you said earlier, we are for everybody. Absolutely. We aren't against whatever. I don't care what anybody does. Just try to. I think maybe kids should be taught certain things. Maybe not taught other things.
Well, let me say this. Let me step in.
Sorry, real quick. I'm sorry. I apologize, but I just want to step in here as I want to be very careful about, and I'm not saying but I want to say something real quick. I think that, running to the right of Trump is just so politically bad. It's not even funny. But beyond that, but specifically because of this. Because I think that people are much, as you said, much more libertarian. I think that the American populace, that the big bulk of the American populace is in this socially liberal, libertarian, laissez-faire type of space, right? But I think at least when it comes to policy, right, public policy, I think where you have strength as a candidate is when you get into situations where it may be seen as infringing or forcing compliance or whatever you want to call it into a parental zone, a family zone, a personal belief zone. And we saw a decision from the Supreme Court, and we'll probably talk about some of that with Professor John Yoo of UC Berkeley Law School next week on that. That's where you get the political result that we saw in Virginia, Paul. That's where I think we see a Governor DeSantis winning by 20 points. So I think that those are important distinctions that I think can easily get maybe overlooked or blurred, in a campaign, but that's extremely important. Do you agree with me? I'll let you roll on that.
Yeah, I agree. And look, what you said earlier, I think DeSantis is running an old school type of campaign, a type of campaign that might have worked in 2004, targeted towards a coalition that might have existed back then, but doesn't exist now. In fact, there's a new poll of Florida that just came out. I can't remember which agency did it, but it has Trump up 20 points against DeSantis in DeSantis' state. And in the breakdown of the poll, the only group that DeSantis is winning is people who make $200,000 or more.
There you go.
It's like he's not getting the common person. And that's what you said is it's just like it's not that you can't do that anymore. You can't run that kind of Mitt Romney, even George W. Bush.
I'm glad you said that.
Exist.
I'm glad you said that because someone else said that, and I felt like it felt like and maybe it's Molly Hemingway or someone, but like you thought Governor DeSantis was a better version of Trump, and he's really turning into Mitt Romney as a candidate. And that's that's just a terrible place to be. And you can't be that place. But I mean, listen, great governor. I think that, he needs to recalibrate because here's the thing. The press is really going after him pretty hard. I think they wanted to beat Trump, but I mean, they're really going after Governor DeSantis pretty hard because of these social issues. And there's a lot on the left that are really, have been energized by these Supreme Court decisions. And so I just feel like he is really politically in a bad spot right now. And I don't see it getting better. Maybe the debate, I don't know. He's in a tough spot, but I want to leave that where it is. And I think that he needs to really think about things and that campaign needs to reevaluate, reboot. A great governor, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, but as I said before, nothing can take away the success that he's had, that the administration has had, and the success that's with Florida. And again, some of that goes to President Trump as well for the national policies. But absolutely, he's been governor now, and he gets a huge amount of that credit as well. And so you got to think about where you're going from here because I don't see this trajectory really working. And I don't see anything changing President Trump at all at this point. Being the nominee. Now let's go to the Democratic side. And on the Democratic side, there's been, I just saw this thing right here. There's more and more talk about right here, The Hill by Mick Mulvaney. Okay, quote, headline, the evidence mounts that Democrats are souring on Biden. And it goes on to talk about that. I mean, that's a big deal. People are openly talking about when, I saw another article, when's the right time for Biden to drop out? I mean, and talk about LBJ. I mean, there's all this discussion. What do you make of that? I don't buy it. I think he wants to run. I think Dr. Biden wants him to run as well. I mean, we can talk about all this other stuff going on with, Karine Jean-Pierre with the questions and all. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. And a lot of people, I don't want to get, I don't know. I don't know if I want to get into it as well, but there's all kinds of questions circulating right now. Let's start with this. Do you think Biden's going to be the nominee, and how long what do you make of this open discussion about if he's not going to run?
I think Biden will be the nominee, but I think there are a whole bunch of people on the left that wish he wouldn't be the nominee. And they are concerned, in my opinion, that he's a liability as a nominee. But you can see people basically, when that comes out, when somebody says that, then somebody else says, hey, don't say that. So there's kind of a battle going on about that, a political struggle about that. But as you said, I don't see how you're going to. I don't see how he would be displaced. I just don't see that happening. I think he will be the nominee, and I've said it before on the show. He's not going to be easy to beat. The reason is people are comfortable with him, and because of the Democratic ability to do mail-in voting and get out and canvass and get people on that. I've seen that here in Pennsylvania. He's going to be formidable. He's going to be formidable, so do not underestimate him.
100% agree. This is the thing about the whole situation is you know, if the theory was like, hey, you know, Trump with the indictments and polling will go down and he'll get out and drop out and then it's going to be easy to beat Biden and it's going to be DeSantis, like no, dude, that's not going to. It's probably going to be. It's very likely to be Trump on the Republican side, and it's very likely to be Biden on the Democrat side. I don't see anything changing on that. We've been saying it for a long time. So far, so good in terms of that prediction, and I think it's going to be very, very hard to beat President Biden. I think it's going to be very crazy, but there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the world. But what's interesting now is because of this discussion, here's why I bring it up. Because of this discussion, open discussion now, I think you're going to see a lot of criticism and a lot of questions and maybe even increasing pressure from the media that you haven't seen before on this president. And I don't know, like if you've seen, you know, KJP up there, you know, answering questions, I don't think they've seen this level of scrutiny. I think it's a different thing. And now we've seen the reemergence of President Obama. He's been much more vocal, much more visible. There's discussions about, you know, maybe Michelle Obama. I mean, you know, Susan Rice is no longer with the administration. There's a lot of, I'm telling you right now, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of things going on under the, you know, different, you know, you don't know what's being discussed at high levels or what's happening in some of these campaigns. It's different things. I mean, there's a lot of it. I think it's a very dynamic, interesting, you know, political atmosphere right now. But at the same time, like, I think that this also, look, a lot of this is going to come down to the economy. I'm trying to say like 5 things at once. But I mean, if we look at these economic situations, right, you have this. I mean, this is kind of related to the other thing in terms of like, I think that you do best when media and corporations are responsive to consumers, not the other way around. We've had this like this nudging, this pushing, and we're gonna get the corporations together and or debank you or shadow ban you, all this type of stuff. And we've had Wells Fargo. This is another thing right here. Headline, quote, this is on Yahoo Finance. Fox stock downgrade on cord cutting risk as viewership declines post Tucker Carlson. This is by Alexandra Canal, all right, senior reporter. I mean, Fox News, Paul, has not recovered from Tucker Carlson. And this, you know, in my opinion, and this is the thing, if the Republicans can't, this goes back to your point, if the Republicans can't come together and support whomever the nominee is, I think there's going to be a big problem. And if Fox News can't reconcile itself to who their audience really is, they may continue to have problems. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And as we know, and you've pointed out, the Democrats will support the nominee. As we saw, AOC said that she's going to back Biden. So the Republicans have to do that. And it's not a certain thing. And contested primaries don't work well. Just ask Jimmy Carter about that when he went up against Ted Kennedy. That's not a strategy for success. So, yes, the party needs to do that. Fox News needs to do that. As you said, it is not working out. And, you know, I was a poor decision, in my opinion, to let go Tucker Carlson.
Absolutely. Now, I want to put a couple things on the table here, and we're going to break around the 4:59. So we got about 5-6 minutes left here. And next hour, we're going to be joined by James Horace, MBA, of Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. And we're going to talk about all kinds of different things in that time frame. And Paul as well will continue with us. But we're talking about this. This is interesting. We're talking technology as fuck business right now. And you know, and I want to get much more into the business. And when we were talking about much more business and automotive in this show as part of it, and we're going to talk about that, venture capital and technology, and I love all that. But I mean, there's so much that's interwoven right now with policy and in politics. And we are on Newstalk 1040 AM right here in the greater Tampa Bay area. So it all has to be discussed, and we had so much to talk about there. But here, how about this? Quote, New York Post, Meta's Threads surpasses 100 million users in 5 days while Twitter traffic tanks, unquote. I mean, Paul, there's so many people, particularly on the liberal side and the media, the mainstream media, that are really unhappy with Elon Musk, and they're really, what is up with this whole Twitter situation, and what's up with Meta and Threads? I mean, you've been following this a little bit. Take us a little bit inside of this story.
Okay, so Threads is part of Meta, a subsidiary of Meta, as is Facebook, as is Instagram. Now, my understanding is that a lot of these signups for Meta, which are for Threads, which is the direct competitor of Twitter, are coming from Instagram. In other words, they're just kind of signing them up, or it's very easy to sign up. So I don't know if it's as incredible a story as it's being made out to be. As you said, I think the media wants people to move away from Twitter because they don't like, in my opinion, where Elon's coming from. So if we can get people over to another service, that would mean Twitter and Elon have less influence on the discussion. I think that the media is kind of rooting for that, in my opinion. But look, it's a real thing. I mean, Facebook, Meta has the ability, they have the server, they have the knowledge to be able to make a serious challenge to Elon. Apparently, Threads hired a bunch of former Twitter employees, and they're rolling. I mean, they are doing it. It could very well become a situation where Twitter becomes more right-leaning and Threads becomes more of the place where left-leaning folks go to. That's what it seems like is happening already now, and maybe it will continue that way.
Well,
one thing I'll say with Elon, go ahead.
I was going to say there's another thing real quick I'll throw this on because we'll have a couple minutes to discuss, and then we'll wind down the segment. Quote, this is from the Hindustan Times today. Quote, this is in this, what is that? Quote, there's a article by Shobhit Gupta, and in that, the first line there, quote, Twitter bosses threaten to sue Meta for infringement on Twitter's intellectual property after Meta CEO launched social media site Threads. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth here. I mean, we're seeing I really think that this is kind of a theme for what we're seeing here. I mean, we've got the whole world in like political, which way are we going? Politically, business-wise, with ESG, with all these, all these different things. There's a big sort of reflection point here, a crossroads, if you will. I mean, a decision point. And I think that this is kind of, I don't know. Is this sort of analogous to that, Paul? What do you think of that?
I just want to tell you that Elon himself, in a tweet, essentially confirmed that report, basically saying that, we're considering suing them for infringement because I believe he feels that some of these employees that were hired, ex-Twitter employees, basically took over, in his opinion, some of the IP from Twitter. And he's like, look, I don't have a problem with competition, but I do have a problem with cheating. That's his words, not mine. So I guess he is seriously considering this. And as you said, look, everything seems so polarized these days. I think people are very tired of that, but we're still there.
I'm so tired, and we saw that. That's the first show. I mean, so tired of the hyper-partisanship, so tired of the polarization, so tired. I mean, people just want to go back to their lives, and people want to have fun and enjoy, sports and their neighbors and their family and everything like that. And hopefully we're going to we're a little beacon of sunshine here on Newstalk 1040 AM, the John D. Villarreal Show. Next hour, we're talking to James Horace, MBA. Be right back at you in 6 minutes. You're listening to Newstalk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay Area. Okay, so for those of you watching this later or joining us live here at the break, we're going to take we will go about 6 minutes here. We will be starting up again at 5:06. I'm just going to get myself a little bit prepared from the guest next hour. It should be really great. We're joined by James Horse, MBA from Johns Hopkins, and Paul will stay with us. And we're going to get into it. Now, next hour, I want to talk about a lot of business stuff. We're going to get a little bit more into automotive. James has sort of opened up the conversation here. I don't know whether there's so many areas the conversation can go into. We can get into business. We can get into, James's military. So, there's all kinds of different places we can go with that conversation with James. So we'll see where he wants to go with it. This guy's a great guy, though, and so I'm very excited about that discussion. So let me prepare for that a little bit, and I'll see you guys in a bit. So I'm going to mute myself here for a little bit. So again, real quick, if you're watching this later or joining right now, but more importantly, if you're watching this later, you can just fast forward to the 5:06 point or whatever that is. I don't know what that timing is, but basically it's 5 p.m. right now, so 6 minutes ahead from now.
Tampa Bay weather forecast.
We're getting ready to go back on the air here soon.
Had wind gusts of 40 miles an hour clock in. Storms up to a high of 90, followed on Wednesday by partly sunny, will reduce down to a 20% widely scattered afternoon.
Hey, John.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right, man. Good to see you. How you been?
Doing well, doing well. We're live right now. I'm going to mute you for 1 second.
Sure.
Accident attorneys.
Just contact the .org. The U.S.
Okay, we're getting ready to go live here once we pick this thing up. Okay, what's going on? Greater Tampa Bay Area Newstalk 1040 a.m. This is the John D. Villarreal Show in the Greater Tampa Bay Area. We're also live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and I'm so excited right now. I haven't talked to this gentleman for just a little bit, but this is one of my close friends from Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. And James, I mean, I was reading a little bit about what you're up to and really your background, and I knew some of it. Now, you have to tell me where you want to go with this. I know you kind of give me some open license here, if you will, to talk about a lot of things, but I didn't know, or maybe I forgot, that you are a Purple Heart winner. That is incredible, man. And you did some amazing stuff. Bronze Star Medal winner as well with Valor, issued December 2008 with the U.S. Army. I don't know how much you want to get into some of that, but do you want to discuss any of that at all? You also have an MBA from Johns Hopkins, and right now you're working with Gallagher Wealth Management. I definitely want to talk about the economy and some things out there as well, sure, if you want to get into that. But do you want to touch on any of your military accomplishments or duty at all? And thank you for your service, of course.
Yeah, my pleasure. I've had off the wall. I've had some different experiences. I mean, off the beaten path, you want to call it. A lot of them are more hard lessons learned than anything else. But it's been an interesting ride, and it all. I mean, professionally speaking, I cut my teeth doing construction and odd jobs like everybody else did. And then I joined the Army after high school, and then I just after that, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, so I got, I earned the Purple Heart, I call it the enemy marksmanship badge, I got nailed. My luck ran out, and I was like, okay, well, I guess the Army's not in the cards. It's kind of tough to do that job if you can't walk anymore.
Oh my gosh.
It took me about a year to learn how to walk again. So I went out and went to college because, it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I scored an internship in Australia. That's when I got actually into small business quite a bit. So I was there for about 6 months, and I was like, wow, this is actually insanely interesting. I knew nothing about business, nothing at all. I knew how to spend money, and that was about it. So anyway, I had a bunch of small ventures here and there, tried to get into medical cannabis when it came to Maryland. I had a brewery, a hop yard. I had a security consulting firm. I'm just like always just trying to do what's next. I mean, actually, my nephew's in town, and he and I are doing we're spinning off organic hair care company.
Whoa, what's going on with that? Now, you're definitely an entrepreneur. Talk to me about that. You've done a lot of different things. Like you said, you had the brewery. I know we talked about that. We had an entrepreneurship class together. Mm-hmm. What is going on with you and your nephew?
So he's an insanely bright kid. I mean, I really don't endorse teenagers by and large because they're typically the same. I mean, I fell into that boat too. I mean, at the age of 18, I couldn't have told you how little I'd be interested in finance or business. Like I didn't want it at all. He's built different, man. He's really bright. I mean, he's been taking college classes for the last 3 years. He finally graduated high school, and he's like, all right, what are we doing? And, I had this idea. I mean, the stuff in my hair right now, I made it, right? So I started making my own, hair pomade just because I was like, oh, wow, I don't want my hair to fall out, and it's good for me, and it's cheap to make. I was like, okay. But I start, doing the stuff that we were doing in grad school. I'm like, so, can I scale this? Can this be marketable? Is this valuable? And the short answer is yes. So I'm like, great. So the thing I love about my current profession, I'm in wealth management. I'm a financial planner. and I love the work. It's great, but it allows for a great deal of free enterprise. I'm not locked in with a non-compete to this saying I can't do anything unless they say so. I can do whatever I want as long as my work gets done and everything. So, my practice is expanding. I'm doing real well at the new firm. But, this kid's got some time off in the summer and we can do everything remotely now. And I'm basically just, funding the initial stages, and it's going really well. And it's fun because I love doing business development. I love entrepreneurship. It's super fun. I love my practice, but there is something super fun and sexy about doing another thing. So yeah, he's in town doing that, and we got all kinds of products lined up right now. We're in the testing phase. We're rolling out samples and everything, and it's just moving right along, man. It's cooking.
No, this is awesome. I would definitely want to talk to you about that offline for sure. And I wasn't aware of that, but here's the thing. I think you touch on a lot of great things right there, and this is perfect for the show because there's so many people that want to be entrepreneurs, whether it's Shark Tank or Gary Vaynerchuk, or they went to school like we did, or anything like that, and they don't know how to do it. Maybe they're they have a family, and they have responsibilities, and they got a mortgage, or all of the above, or whatever that it is, and they just don't know how to put it together, or what's that first step, or how you get that side hustle really working. What kinds of recommendations can you give, or what steps have you been able to take that you see have worked, for yourself, whether it's through direct experience or, of course, our experience at Johns Hopkins Carey Business School studying on the academic side?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky coming into it from the position I'm in now, because I did have a lot of. I'll just say it. All of my previous startups were failures, but I don't. They were.
That's common.
I'm not bringing any revenue from those, but it's not. But it wasn't a shot in the head. I was like, hey, what did I learn from any of this? And the bottom line is, most people that are successful entrepreneurs are also very successful at having previous failed ventures, because you don't know everything when you start it, especially your first one. Are you kidding me? Oh man. Talk about a kick in the gut. I knew nothing. I was like, I know this will work. I'm like, well, no, it won't. You got to have your go get 'em attitude will only take you so far. You got to have infrastructure, network. You got to know what's just legally speaking. There's all kinds of things that you need to know. And, you can be the smartest guy in the world, but if you don't know what to look for, then you're going to miss a lot. And that could be the coffin nail for your business. So I'm lucky to have so much of that experience, and not to, a lot of people will talk down at advanced degrees, but grad school taught me a hell of a lot of things that I just knew nothing about. That's what the whole point of education, right? So I retained all that. I still got all my old notes and spreadsheets and all that.
Great, all right.
And I'm digging them out. I'm like, I haven't worked on a pricing model in 6 years. I'm like, okay, so I'm doing that. So, but my nephew's a sponge. He's the workhorse. I already got a bread and butter. I got a kid. I got a house that just caught fire. I got a whole bunch of other stuff I got to deal with. I'd love to do this day and night. But it's not really there. But I can sit there and let him know what needs to happen. And it's pretty fantastic. I had a loose list of like, look, you're going to be living here for like a month and a half. Here's a check. Here's a block of checks. This is what you need to get through. He goes, okay. And he smokes through most of it in the first day. And I'm like, okay, this was kind of a setup. Like, these things all lead into other steps you need to get. Like, the steps never end. Like, they all spider web into other stuff. So he's getting it after like crazy, and he's just, uncovering this, that, and the other. And he'll occasionally be like, hey, what do you think I should do about this? And I'll tell him, like, I don't know. I don't know anything about building a website. I'll call my guy. Yeah, I got like a good friend who's like prior service as well, and he does digital marketing. I got my buddy. He can introduce us to a bunch of venture cap down the road. We got, I got this like valuable network that I haven't really been able to leverage yet, and now is my chance. And I'm like, this is 10, 15 years of friendships and relationship development that I can bring to bear. And I tell him, I'm like, listen, like, the best thing you can do for yourself is remember people's names, introduce yourself, and keep in touch. You don't always have to have an angle, just sit there, calm, check, see how the kid's doing. And he's just sucking it up, and he's all about it, which is awesome, because he's got the energy of an 18-year-old.
Gosh, to have that again. Oh my, where's that at?
It'd be amazing. I'd be unstoppable. I'm like, dude, I'm grumpy and old now. I'm like, but hey, you got the fire, bro. Let her rip. So it's a good partnership, man. And yeah, it's going really well. So I can still manage both things at once. Of course, I'm juggling 68 things like usual, but that's nothing new. But yeah, I think this thing's got some legs, and I'm pretty jazzed about it, dude. Because like you start a new thing, and That's the hot thing on your plate, and like you're just going at it full bore. And I feel more energized in the last month than I have in like the last like 2 years.
Well, that is
Like,
so cool, bro.
Yeah, I'm like, sleep. What the hell is that? Who needs it? Let's go. I'm like, how can we do this? How can we do that? And the cool part is he's matching it and exceeding it, which is rare. I mean, like you and me have been in the same boat where it's like we're the hottest burning fire in the room.
Yeah.
And that's cool for like 30 seconds until you realize that it's hard to advance when you're dragging everybody, right?
Bro, oh my gosh, yes.
If you're, what's the old saying?
I've never heard it put that way, but I love that. That is like, oh my gosh.
Like, I think it was like, what was it? The Rock, maybe? It's an old saying, but like, if you're the hardest working, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like, I live by that.
That's right.
I hate being the guy that's like, I got it all covered. I'm like, no, I need to learn something else. I mean, I'm going to conferences and stuff. I'm like, no, there's a crap ton I don't know, and I need to know it. I need to find other hustlers, people that are going to outwork me and make me work harder. And that's just the elevation, right? So, and so he's here. He wakes up, eats, lives, and breathes this stuff, and I'm like, this is so cool. So I'm having a good time.
I love this. How did you pick this sector? And when you answer that, I also kind of want your theory behind it. Do you believe that you have to pick something that you're really passionate about, or do you believe that you look for the next hot new sector or next hot new idea? Like a lot of people that were in blockchain, now they're all about AI, because that's the thing. Like what's your take on picking your business to start your entrepreneurial selection?
Actually, 2 lessons that I got from when I was in Australia. My boss / mentor is probably one of the biggest wholesalers in Australia, and the other guy was the CEO for the biggest ad firm in Australia. And I happen to be really fortunate. I'm like super close friends with them. And one of them, the ad guy, he was like, listen, you don't have to invent anything new. In fact, that's not a good business model. But you should improve on something. Like, for instance, and he goes, have you ever heard of a Snuggie? I said, yeah, of course. He goes, have you ever heard of a Slanket? I said, no. He goes, okay, Slanket came out first. It's just a blanket with sleeves. But you want to know why Snuggie won? I said, no. And he goes, because they had patterns. They had zebra and leopard prints. It's the same thing. There's nothing different.
They made it fun.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And then the other one, my boss, he was like, and he would sit there every week, every single Friday for 6 months. He said, what'd you learn this week? What's a new business idea? I'm like, dude, I don't know, because I'm still wired in army mindset at this point. Like, I have no clue what's going on in my head right now. It's like a swarm of bees. And he's like, listen, if you want to start a business, like anybody can start one, everybody can do it, yada, yada, yada. But he goes, if you want to succeed in business, you have to be satisfying your own need with the business you're making, because it adds to the passion and the direction for it, of course. But but that need will never go away, right? Because it's your need. If you don't need something, like anybody can start an IT company. That ain't hard. You need a couple $100,000 and a few clients, and you can print money. But all these people that do it usually end up failing, no matter how much they're making or how much they're doing, because they're just not in it. If they didn't have an IT need, their computer works just fine, right? And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. That's a pretty good part of it. So I went down this rabbit hole. Like, it was an Instagram ad, and it was for like because pomade is like $20 a can. And I got this slick shit going on, stuff all the time. And I'm like, dude, I'm like hemorrhaging money on like petroleum jelly, basically, And then I look into it, and it goes into like, all these things are petrochemicals, and it's leading to hair loss and this, that, and all these skin conditions. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So how can I do that? So I looked up a DIY pomade. That was it. Organic DIY pomade. And it was like, oh, some, this ingredient, that ingredient, that ingredient. It was like 3 ingredients plus essential oils for smell or something. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I went out and I bought this stuff just to see if I could make it. I got a little boilerplate recipe and I tried it, and all of the ingredients, all in, and plus time cost me less than 1 can of Crew. And I'm like,
now why is this better? Because it's organic, and it like what is the niche? Where's that market going? I mean, I haven't really had to worry about hair products for a minute here, but I just do the clipper thing, keep it as short as possible. So it's pretty low maintenance. But I mean, tell me where this market is. I think there's been a push on the food side of people want more natural, more organic, more healthy, all that type of stuff. Are you seeing that on the hair care side too?
It's burgeoning. It's by no means prevalent, and the reason why is because, to be perfectly frank, with a lot of stuff like shampoos and there's some stuff like hairspray can't be organic, right? Like a
Right.
gel can't be. There's some stuff that you just, I mean, I guess technically you could, but it would have like honey or molasses in it, and who the hell wants to put sugar on their head? So the product lines are definitely limited, but the good part is that it works better than the petro stuff. The reason why the petro stuff took off is because oil is huge, right? And it's available and you can do so much with it. That's why it became a thing. It wasn't because people liked it. It was because it worked. And they sort of stuck with it. I mean, how many, like most people with hair products smell like Vaseline or gasoline, right? It's like one or the other, and it's kind of, or like cologne. This stuff, it smells fresh. It's cheap. It's actually good for your hair, your skin, and everything else. And it works, like I said, just as well, if not better, than all the big stuff. And in our biggest thing, or not our biggest, but one of the things is price point. I mean, per unit cost is through the floor. It's like it's almost negligible. And then it's like, this is great. So we can charge basically what we want up until the competitors, but we don't necessarily want to, because we're focusing on the two most underserved sectors of the hair care market. So, and that's a $3 billion market, which is not served whatsoever. And I'm like, or hardly at all. And so we're pushing in for a newer branding, because right now it's very, especially with the men's hair care product, you see some insane stuff like Super Viking Overlord Raider pomade. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And so that is by definition severely limited. Ours is very broad scope. So yeah, we're not going to have a million products. We also don't want a million products. So it's a matter of just finding the avenues into the market itself, which are not super highly regulated, because it's not a consumable. With the ingredients being all organic and natural and cruelty free and all that, we feel the ESG need. And then again, I mean, I get to leverage a lot of my network to this, which is, I mean, and of course, this is like, in 10 years, what could this be? And I'm not seeing a downside. That was another thing. I was like, can this be a business? I'm like, yes. I'm like, what's the downside? The MBA kicks in, right? Like, what's your I'm like, I know it's my baby, right? But I don't see an absolute downside to this, given what people can get. What's the good, fast, and cheap, right? I
love it.
That's the perfect thing. And if I can do good, fast, and cheap at once, game on. I'm like, at this point, it's a matter of, are you willing to do the work? Because that's a lot of why the businesses fail, right? People want to get paid quickly or right up front or all this other stuff. I'm like, I know the drill. I know it's going to take a while. I don't care. If you put in the work, boom, anything can work. The pet rock worked. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You put it in work, it can work.
Do you think this is going to be more like Dollar Shave Club, Harry's? Are you going after you mentioned that there's two sectors that are kind of underserved. Is this like the men's market? Like, I mean, I don't know if you want to get I don't know how much you want to get into it, but like, what's the theory of the business? And yeah, I mean, are you thinking about, you want to keep operating this thing at a higher level, or do you want to sell it? I mean, what does that look like?
I mean, as far as the, target markets are concerned, I mean, like I said, I picked this because I wanted it, right? The pomade. So that's obviously diluted. You go to any grocery store, you're going to see a ton of stuff. So what's the differentiator going to be? Odds are it's going to be price. And because people are becoming more aware of what they're doing to their bodies with, it's like you mentioned, food is huge, but it's trickling out onto this stuff. So it's not necessarily ground floor. We're not reinventing this stuff. This stuff already exists to one degree or another, but we're bringing it to bear. And that's the real value add for that one. And then the other products are focused on, minority women.
Fantastic.
Nobody focuses on them, and I'm like, why not, right? I mean, that's a massive, massive market. So yeah, we're going into that. That's the big impetus there, and like I said, man, I got the hustler next to me. It's fantastic. He's just
I love it.
Like, what's about this? What about that? What about that? I'm like, dude, run with it. I'm like, keep hard charging, dude. You're never gonna have more energy than you have right now. Capitalize.
Dude, that's exciting. That's exciting. It sounds like you've got a great business. Sounds like you've got great focus there, and there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think, like, it's so fun, like you said, when you can come up with a product that you feel good about, that you feel is adding value out there to the marketplace, that you feel is also, you're able to to bring that to, again, you're adding value to customers that need, that want these products. That's huge. I'd love to, I definitely want to talk to you more about that, off the air, no doubt about it. But so let me ask you this, and we're joined by Paul at Villarreal as well. And I know you're here for a segment, so we got some tight time here, but I mean, he may be, I'm sure he's prepping for the next segment as well. But I want to think about this, like, I love that entrepreneurial journey. Where do you feel that the economy is right now? I mean, do you buy into, a hard crash, or do you buy into a softer landing? Do you think that things are going to kind of get slowly better before the election? I mean, what you look at the markets probably every day. What's your read of where we're at economically right now?
My opinion, and I needed to make the disclosure because I'm a registered rep. This is not financial advice.
Yes. No, please. All disclosures.
Yeah. I think I'm bullish on the market. I'm not so much on the economy, and I think a lot of that is so much of the government intervention. I mean, they keep on toying with it. Just like in 2008 and everything else, like they kept on thinking that they're helping, but like Bill Gates sending the mosquito nets to Africa was not actually helpful because they were laced with bug spray and they used them as fishing nets instead, and they ended up like poisoning a bunch of people. That's typically what I've seen anyway. And again, this is my pessimism coming up. Typically, when the government gets too many fingers in the pie, it ends up it doesn't work. I'd rather have a quick crash and then be able to rebuild and go up from there than have this slow, stagnant thing for over years and still amount to the same thing. So I think the economy, honestly, is probably on a downstroke, and we've seen that at the beginning of this year. I mean, like every major tech, all the tech firms that are drivers of the U.S. market are laying off tens of thousands.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's not good for the economy. It just isn't. That being said, I think the market is on its way up because we're still generating a ton of money. And where's it going to? It goes into the market. So economies and markets are never, or rarely rather, ever hand in hand. They're oftentimes there's a lot of disparity between them. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at. So, for investors and, businesses at large, I think it's going to be okay for them. But there is going to be a lot of house cleaning, so to speak, for the smaller tech firms, especially when SVB went under, how many small firms shuttered their doors.
Massive.
But the good thing is, I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, it's called a market correction for a reason. It's correcting a problem. In this case, it was a massive tech bubble. I mean, everybody spun off a tech firm from 2020 into 2022, and they had insane amounts of money there. Like, yeah, we're doing this great new thing. Like, well, are you? Because I don't think you are.
Right. Oh my! Don't get me started. I think there's so many things called tech that weren't even tech, and there was activism,
Exactly.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
It's a new CRM tool. I'm sorry. Are you telling me you're better than Salesforce? Are you kidding me? But there's just so much money. So I mean, I wasn't sad when that happened. Of course, I'm not in tech. There are at this point hundreds of thousands of people that lost their jobs, good paying jobs in tech, because they got hired on to do something that was unsustainable. And we've seen that with automotive. We've seen that with commodities. We've seen that with every sector. At some point, it just happens, and it sucks when it does, right? I mean, somebody's going to suffer for these things, and it's unfortunate, but it is the natural course of events. And you just got to weather it, I mean, everything improves over time, over a long enough time horizon. And we need to give it that opportunity, because the more fingers in the pies from the federal government, with the bouncing up and down interest rates and, just inflation, deflation, all this stuff is just making things more complex that they don't need to be. They're already complex enough. Just the presence of digital technology in the market right now makes things basically untenable for most people.
I love it. James, You are the best. Now, can you hang out, or you got to jump?
I got about 5 more minutes.
Well, we have to let you go. Appreciate it so much. That's James Horst, my buddy from Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, and he is launching a great, an interesting adventure there on the entrepreneurial side. So we definitely appreciate you being with me. You're listening to the John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay area.
See you, John.
See you guys. Okay, so we've got about a 5-minute break there. And listen, we are We are sponsored by Audi Lakeland here, and we are right now live on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. And we are going to talk to Paul at Villarreal in the next last segment here. And we're gonna get into the economy. We're gonna get into all kinds of different stuff. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. That's very interesting. I went in a different direction than I thought I was gonna go, and I love that. That's what's so exciting. That's why you have to tune in. I mean, you see the passion there from James and the entrepreneurial journey. I just think that's so cool, and that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk to entrepreneurs. We want to talk about venture capital. We want to talk about technology. We want to talk about businesses. We want to talk about, Main Street businesses and all kinds of different things. And of course, we're going to talk a lot about automotive because we're here live at Audi Lakeland, and it's awesome. So we really, really dig it, and we definitely appreciate everybody out there. We appreciate James joining us, and we appreciate the military service as well. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break here to get myself refocused and ready for that last segment. So I'll see you here in about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to put it on mute.
From start to
Okay, we're going to be back on in about 60 seconds here, so we're going to get ready. We'll be joined by Paul at Villarreal, talk about some different things going on, maybe the economy, take your any kind of questions or comments you have. It's going to be fun.
law.
Okay, we got about 20 seconds here.
As a
Here we go.
Please give me a
Hey, what's going on? Greater Tampa Bay area. John D. Villarreal here on Newstalk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay area. Last segment, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. Want to thank James Horace, my former co-student, I guess academic colleague, if you will, at Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Great story there. Great entrepreneurship story. I didn't even expect that. I love that. We mix it up. That's what I'm talking about. I want to talk to the business owners out there. I want to talk to the entrepreneurs out there. We're going to talk to the political candidates. We're going to talk to the academics. Next week, do not miss it. Next week, we're going to be joined by two big guests. Laura DiBella, the Secretary of Commerce for Florida Secretary of Commerce, Laura DiBella, and Professor John Yoo of UC Berkeley School of Law. This is a constitutional law expert. He's got a new book. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Supreme Court decisions. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things. This can go in so many different ways with that discussion, and I cannot wait. Graduate of Yale Law School. I believe he clerked for a Supreme Court justice. I got to double check that. I'm pretty sure that's correct. He was, in full disclosure, was my professor of constitutional law at UC Berkeley, and also was my advisor because I was vice president of the Federalist Society at UC Berkeley School of Law. Now, we are still joined here by Paul at Villarreal. Let's bring him back. Paul, I wanted to get you in there, but it was such a fascinating discussion there. James had so much to talk about. It was awesome. I'm glad he did. It was really, really great. What did you think about that discussion, that entrepreneurship story there?
I thought it was awesome. James fired me up, man. That's like being back in the Valley. That's that attitude that people get stuff done. I thought it was amazing.
No doubt about it. Now, listen, you've been doing some research out there. You've been seeing what's going on out there. I want to talk a little bit. I think we're still missing a couple of things here politically. We're going to do a couple different things. We're going to talk a little bit about politics here on Newstalk 1040 AM. Oh, first, I do have to say this is super, super, super important. This show is sponsored. The John D. Villarreal Show is sponsored by Audi Lakeland. And this right now, Danny Giovino has put out $500 off the general sales manager, $500 off any used car, $2,000 off any new car, any new Audi at Audi Lakeland. You just have to come over here and mention the John D. Villarreal Show at the beginning of your deal. $500 off any used car vehicle, $2,000 off any new Audi vehicle at Audi Lakeland, right off of I-4 in between Tampa and Orlando. Very easy to get to, in my opinion. You just have to mention the John D. Villarreal radio show at the beginning of your deal. So now, Paul, what else? We talked about Trump, we talked about Biden, we talked about DeSantis. But what else is out there politically? What do you see out there that people here on News Talk 1040 might want to think about, might want to see, or either that's happened or that's upcoming this week? What do we need to be thinking about?
Well, I think, as you mentioned with James, of course, the economy is going to be front and center. And there are different views about it. Some people are bullish, Bidenomics, and everything's better than what we think. I think I said last week on the show that the HSBC, the bank, says that they believe that America is going to slip into a recession later in 2023 and be in a recession all through 2024. So that's probably the biggest thing to watch as far as whatever. I would also say politically, possibly could be affect things is whatever happens in Ukraine. We don't know where exactly that's going. I think some people, particularly on the Republican side of the aisle, voters might be a little bit tired of the amount of money being spent on that conflict, and so that's another thing that could pop up. There's also, I was reading an article saying that more younger voters, particularly on the left, are becoming more energized by the whole concern about the Supreme Court. So that's something that could come as well. So it's going to be interesting to see like the arc of what are the issues that are focused on the most as we get to the 2024 campaign in full gear. And we still have to see that. That's still developing.
Well, here, and I'll say this. I'm talking about the economy. This is from Bloomberg. Bloomberg headline right here. This is by Rich Miller, Sam Kim, and Matthew Bosler. This is from today around headline at 12:11 p.m. Eastern time, and it was updated a little bit after that. Headline: Fed officials say higher interest rates are needed to reach 2% inflation goal. Unquote. That's interesting right there. Subheadline: quote, Barr says, quote unquote, a bit of work to do to achieve restrictive rates, unquote. Now, listen, that is like, I mean, I can just tell you here at Audi Lakeland. I mean, and I'm not speaking for, listen, I am speaking, this is my own personal opinion right here. I'm not speaking for Audi Lakeland or Audi or anyone else or Cavalli Auto Group, but I'm just saying, like, let me take it away from that for a second. Let me talk about the show. You see interest rates, having an impact in the automotive market broadly. You're seeing interest rates having an impact in the housing market broadly. And I mean, you're seeing this. You're seeing, people talking about a potential, a real struggle in commercial real estate. There's a lot of open questions going on right now, Paul. I mean, do you think if the Fed continues to raise rates, what is this going to do to the economy? And I think I heard someone, and I can't remember who the commentator was, and I apologize. I can't remember if it was CNBC or if it was on the radio or if it was Fox or something. I mean, I'm listening to so many different and watch so many different sources, but that it was almost that someone was speculating, that the Fed wants to just sort of like, quote unquote, break something and basically to really, really get this economy under control. Now, listen, I mean, we've been through some things with big inflation and Paul Volcker back in the 70s and stuff. I mean, you don't want to see hyperinflation. You've seen some really strong inflation. I'm not a Fed governor. I'm not an economist. I mean, there may be a need for some, you may have to take some strong measures to get this under control because maybe some people have speculated that maybe they let it go too long. What's your read on, is the Fed going to raise again? Do you think they need to? And what will the implication be there? I mean, James kind of intimated, was hinting at some things, I think, in my opinion, last segment in that, with discussing government intervention and stuff. Now, of course, the Fed is its own thing. It's a private agency, and I'm not alleging anything, but the Fed is its own deal. But listen, there's a lot of, do you think the economy needs more slowing down? Where do you think we are with inflation? I think it's a tough situation right now. I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of pain, but yet prices, some prices are still high. What's your take on it? What do you think is going on there?
Well, I think I agree with you. I think prices are still high and it's affecting people. And that's what a lot of people think about. I mean, many people, although it's a larger number now with 401ks and stuff, many people are not in the stock market. As James was talking about, the stock market and the main economy are not the same thing. And so a lot of people, what's happening in the market doesn't matter to them. And so what you're paying when you go to the store does matter to you. What you're paying at the gas pump does matter to you. So as far as will the Fed raise rates more, I don't know. I think maybe they will, but I'm not really sure about that. One thing interesting that I saw about the housing market was, as we know, it's been hurting so much, but it seems like it might be rebounding a little bit because the supply is going down. I think people are choosing to hold on right now because they realize that they get out now, they're not going to get a good price. So maybe that's kind of rebounding a little bit more with a tighter supply. So that's interesting.
Well, there's usually an inverse relationship between, price and interest rates. And we see the same thing with stock markets. As interest rates go up, and I think I just saw something on I want to say CNBC this morning, where there was a quote from one of the pension managers for New York City, which has obviously huge money in the pensions, that there's going to be maybe a little bit of a move away from equities and more into bonds and stuff, because you've got more, when you can achieve rates, pretty significant rates on, potentially, on a bond portfolio, you may choose that over a similar or potentially even less return from a stock portfolio. And again, I'm not giving anyone, any kind of financial advice or anything like that, but there's usually an inverse relationship, academically anyway, between interest rates and the stock market. And you have to look at the substitutes and alternatives and et cetera. I'm just remembering back to my corporate finance days, right? And academically. And so at the same time, when interest rates go up, a similarly priced house, if you have a mortgage, costs more, right? Because you have a higher amount of interest that you have to pay. And same things with loans. And now we have the student loan situation where the Supreme Court struck that down. So politically, what's the Biden administration going to do? I mean, I can just see a situation here where you've got high inflation, high interest rates, student loans people have to start paying those again. Now the interest on that's going to be really high. I mean, you can have a lot of, again, are we going to have a soft landing, or is this going to be a crash? There has to be at some point, there has to be some kind of correction. Now, I am long-term optimistic, but I think there could be some significant pain here right now. I mean, it doesn't feel like even a year ago, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's good for you to bring up the issue of the student loans. I mean, once people have to start paying that again, that could put a shock through the system of the economy. I mean, that's going to test things and about where things are really at. And apparently that's not going to be too long down the line. So that's an interesting concept. Yeah.
But while we're talking about money, how about saving money on a car? How about coming on down to Audi Lakeland? The show is sponsored. John D. Villarreal show is sponsored by Audi Lakeland right here. And Danny Giovino, the general sales manager, put out this offer for the listeners of the John D. Villarreal show. And that is this: $500 off. At least until the next week and the next show, right? So until next Monday, $500, in my opinion, $500 off any used car, $2,000 off any new Audi vehicle at Audi Lakeland. You just have to mention the John D. Villarreal radio show at the beginning of your deal. Come on down here and see what's going on. We've had, Paul, I got to tell you, we've got right now, I believe, we've got an S3, an Audi S3 in Python yellow, a very cool car. I saw a A5 Sportback out there with black optic package and that look in Premium Plus. We've got, I think, at least 2 or 3 Audi SQ7s. I mean, that you're talking about a 500 horsepower twin turbo V8 engine in that. That is awesome. 3-row passenger vehicle there. That's really cool. We've got I think we still have an Audi SQ8 available. That's also 500 horsepower. I've got a McLaren 600 LT here, 600 horsepower. I mean, a lot of cool stuff. An Alpina B7. I mean, that's very, very, and a BMW. That's very, very cool. I don't know if this is still available or not, but I think we had at least a Porsche 911 Turbo S. A lot of cool vehicles, a lot of cool cars, a lot of cool opportunity right here, but you can't take advantage of it if you don't come down to Audi Lakeland in between Tampa and Orlando, right off of I-4. Ask for me, John D. Villarreal, and listen, mention the John D. Villarreal radio show and get that deal, that offer by Danny G., the general sales manager. But look, Paul, I want to talk about this too. There's a lot of things going on. I know this is going to be very interesting. You probably have something to say about this. And this is from Bloomberg. Quote, headline. I mean, there's so much to talk about here. We could go on for like 4 hours. Quote, judge refuses to pause ban on U.S. agency social media contact, unquote. And a subheadline, quote, DOJ sought emergency delay of judge's order from appeals court, unquote. I remember when, some people out there in the media and some commentators were saying that it was, quote unquote, crazy to think that the government was involved in social media and any kind of, posts or review or potential, all that, that kind of contact with social media companies. And we've seen the Twitter files, and now we've got this headline here on Bloomberg. What do you make of that, and where do you think it goes from here?
Well, I can tell you from just looking at had social media today that, of course, conservatives were thrilled about this because they weren't happy with finding out some of the information in the Twitter files, which is basically when Elon bought Twitter, he went and looked at some of the policies that had been done before he bought it. And apparently there had been a lot of interaction between the government and people at Twitter. And Elon didn't like that. He kind of gave that information to various journalists, and that became the Twitter files, kind of exposing and discussing what had happened with that. Look, conservatives, people on the right feel like their voices have been silenced, and I know Governor DeSantis has talked about that. And so they are thrilled that the government won't be able to tell social media or confer with social media to say, hey, that person's post is quote-unquote disinformation, and maybe you should take it down. And so I've obviously people are ecstatic about that. And look, it's not a surprise that the judge didn't refuse to stay the order, in my opinion, because he issued the order. So it's like we're going to have to wait until this goes to trial, and I think that's a lot of people are happy about that.
Give me your position on opinion on this. Do you think that post Twitter files and where we're at now, do you think, and with Elon Musk, owning Twitter and all this, and Rumble and some of these other, obviously the John D. Villarreal show and all these other different formats now, do you feel like freedom of speech is on the ascendancy again, and that we're getting into more free and open debate and discussions, or now that we're ramping up for another election, do you feel like there's going to be more? I mean, a lot of people are very critical, including some on the Republican side on Congress, about what happened last year in 2020 with the Hunter Biden laptop story, and how that was seen as disinformation. And now we know that that story it looks very, very different here in 2023. So where are you at? Do you think that things are going to get better and there was more freedom of speech and more free and open debate and discussion, or do you think that we see another attempt at potential censorship, shadow banning, whatever you want to talk about, of conservatives on social media?
I think that things are on the ascent. I think, as you mentioned, Rumble, Twitter under Elon, those two in particular. There are some other venues
so freedom of
as well.
speech, just to clarify what you're saying, you think freedom of speech is on the ascent?
Yeah, sorry. Right. I think freedom of speech is on the ascent. That's just what I meant to say. With those, particularly Twitter and Rumble, which of course is located there in Central Florida, the headquarters. But I still think people are nervous about it. As I said, the Meta's Threads is a competitor to Twitter. Well, what if it gets really big and everybody goes to Threads and nobody pays attention to Twitter anymore? Is that going to hurt free speech? Is that going to make, if a tree falls in a forest and nobody hears it, does it matter? Does that have free speech? So I think people are still concerned. And something I know that you and I have observed over the last numerous political cycles is when it comes close to election time, there seems to be possibly an increased effort at silencing the right in these certain venues, reporting people for supposed violations, getting people's channels taken down, this type of a thing. So, unfortunately, I'm still concerned that that's going to happen. In fact, I've already seen some of it happening. So, we have to see, but at least there's more of the capacity, I think, for that to be avoided this time around with outlets like Twitter under Elon and Rumble and so forth.
Well, and again, this is your opinion, and we're not alleging anything, and this is maybe some anecdotal incidents and stuff like that. But I think that what you bring up is a key point. And this goes back to Trump, which is to say, there's a couple of different points I want to make fast here. We got about 5 minutes left in the show. And number one is that the conservatives and the Republican Party have to get into the now, have to get into 2023, 2024, and have to realize that these are different campaigns right now. And you cannot rely on the old, the direct mail and TV and all that type of stuff. And we saw how, we talked about, Fox News going down and people cutting the cords and stuff like that. And thankfully, we're here live on Newstalk AM, 1040 AM, and people still listen. I think it's about 240 million by one stat, if I'm remembering correctly, in my opinion, still listen to radio. And we love radio, and we love all the mediums, but you have to understand where the new media is and where and how communication has evolved, holistically, right? That's number one. And I don't think that they've fully caught up on that, right? Now, someone that's done a good job on that is Trump, but also here's the thing with Trump, as you said, and that kind of goes into some of these other things. He's a global celebrity and understands that it's still about capturing and maintaining people's attention. That is, can you be compelling and can you be entertaining? And so many on the Republican side, can't. And the left, I think, does a much better job of being culturally relevant, having star power, having, engaging sports stars, engaging Hollywood and, Madison Avenue, all these types of things. And really, you can have an open platform, but if no one's on it, then it doesn't matter, right? Or have a show or whatever that it is. So you still have competition there in the marketplace. And unfortunately, we have more, but we still have there's still a limitation on the number of outlets that are really sort of focused on free speech. Now, we have voices out there like Russell Brand and Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and Bill Maher and Rumble and others, and Tucker Carlson now on Twitter and that are trying to do it. But I think that unfortunately we need a lot more people doing that, and some of the folks out there on Substack, Paul. I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, what do you think's going to win out, I guess? Do you think that free speech wins out? Are we going to have more or less free speech and more or less censorship in 2024 than you think in 2020? Let's focus on that.
I think there will be less censorship because I think there are more venues right now. I do think that's going to be the case. I do think we need even more outlets. And as Andrew Breitbart once said, politics is downstream of culture. That's basically what you're saying. If you control the culture, so to speak, then you can, politics follows from that. One thing I will say, though, just coming back to just the political discussion, but ties into this, is I think the single biggest issue, apart from anything that comes up, whether it's there's a super economic crash or something like this, the single biggest issue, in my opinion, in the election in 2024, at least the presidential election, is going to be Republicans seriously competing with mail-in voting, early voting, etc. Again, as a Pennsylvanian who the early voting and mail-in voting rules were changed here before 2020, I can tell you it had a massive effect on Biden winning the state in 2020 and John Fetterman winning the Senate in 2022. I know Democrats canvassed, worked super hard, and I don't think Republicans are doing any of that. So if they don't get that together, they're going to have a hard time winning, even if you had 1 million outlets with free speech.
Do you think that they are going to get that? I mean, I've heard that Trump has focused on that a little bit, is talking about it. There's been a lot of discussion about, I think when Harmeet Dillon was running against Ronna McDaniel for GOP chair, I think there's been some discussion on that. Do you think is that on the radar screen, or they have a plan? Will a plan be put in place? I mean, what's your vibe on that before 2024?
I think it will improve. I think the sooner that the party can coalesce around a nominee who is almost certainly going to be Trump, the quicker they can focus on addressing that issue.
We agree on that. We got to wrap it down here and wind it down, which is basically like, look, Republicans have to come together. There's a lot of work to do. This election is going to be close, and that's what we're talking about. Hey, listen, next week we're going to be joined by Laura DeBella, Florida Secretary of Commerce, and Professor John Yoo of UC Berkeley School of Law. Great week. Have an awesome week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the John D. Villarreal Show. You're listening to the John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM. Greater Tampa Bay area. Stay blessed. See you next week.